So listen to this, because this is one of those stories that sounds unreal until you realize every part of it actually happened. In 2018, just hours after Sadio Mané scored a decisive goal to secure a dramatic 2-1 victory, a short video quietly surfaced online. Not of a celebration, not of a luxury car or a private jet, but of Mané cleaning the toilets of his local mosque. And within moments, the internet exploded, split between people praising his humility and others questioning how a man regarded as one of the best footballers on earth, a player Lionel Messi himself would soon vote among the world's finest, could be doing something so ordinary, so unglamorous, so far removed from the image of a superstar. Yet what stunned everyone even more was Mané's reaction. Because he didn't lean into the praise, didn't explain himself, didn't try to turn it into a moment. He simply dismissed it, saying he never wanted the video shared at all, because to him there was nothing special about it. This wasn't charity or symbolism or an act of humility, it was just life as he had always known it. And to understand why, you have to go back long before the goals, before the trophies, before Europe ever learned his name, back to Bambali, a small village where Mané grew up as the son of the local imam, in a place where responsibility wasn't taught, it was lived. But this story isn't really about faith or football at first, it's about loss. Because as Mané once recalled, when he was only 7 years old, heading out to play football like any other child, his cousin stopped him and said, "Sadio, your father has died." And he laughed, genuinely believing it was a joke because his father had been sick before and traditional medicine always helped. Except this time it didn't. There was no hospital in Bambali, no emergency care, no second chance, and in that moment his world changed forever. Because that day, Mané didn't just dream of escaping poverty or becoming famous. He decided he would change the destiny of his family, his village, and everyone connected to it. And in his mind, there was only one possible way to do that: football. Yet reality immediately pushed back because Bambali barely had a place to play, just a dusty patch of land. And after his father's death, things became even harder. His uncle took over responsibility for both the mosque and Mané himself, and saw football as nothing but a distraction, year after year, forcing him to work more, serve more, and play less. Until one day, he banned him from football entirely. And that's when, at just 15 years old, Mané vanished, leaving in secret without telling anyone, walking for hours before finding transport, eventually boarding a bus to Dakar, a city that felt like a football paradise compared to everything he had known. A place with academies, scouts, and real pathways to Europe, arriving with no plan, no money, and no guarantees, believing that if he played anywhere, even on the streets, someone might notice. Until reality caught up again, his family discovered where he was, traveled to Dakar, and brought him back home, seemingly ending the dream. Except it didn't end there, because 7 months later, Mané left again, this time prepared, this time focused, entering official trials where 300 boys stood in line, and when he stepped forward, many walked away, because he didn't look like a footballer, wearing regular pants instead of shorts, boots torn and held together with wire. Even the scouts stared at him strangely, not out of mockery, but shock, because standing in front of them was raw, undeniable talent. A boy who would go on to become the greatest Senegalese footballer of all time. And after 3 years at Generation Foot, his chance finally came. Their partner club in France, FC Metz, flew their top prospects over, most returned home. Mané stayed, clinging to that opportunity so desperately that, according to the club's own physio, he played for more than 2 months with a brutal chronic injury before it was discovered he needed surgery. Never complaining, never asking for sympathy, and even after that setback, it took him just 4 months to reach the first team. And although Metz were relegated soon after, Mané had already crossed the line that mattered most, because he had made it. And that video years later, the one that confused the world, suddenly makes sense because that humility was never an image. It was forged in loss, discipline, and survival. And if you want more football stories told like this, stories that go deeper than stats and trophies, make sure you subscribe. Within just 12 senior appearances, Mané had already done enough to force his way into Senegal's Olympic squad, a decision that baffled almost everyone watching from the outside. This was a player who had barely tasted professional football, thrown into an international tournament against seasoned stars, and on paper, Senegal were expected to fold immediately. Instead, something strange happened. Against a British team packed with names like Ryan Giggs and Daniel Sturridge, Mané didn't just survive, he dictated, threading a perfectly weighted pass to help secure a draw. Then going a step further by knocking out Uruguay, sending both Suarez and Cavani home far earlier than anyone predicted. And even though Senegal's run ended in the quarterfinals, the real impact was happening off the pitch. Because thousands of miles away in Austria, Ralf Rangnick and Gerard Houllier came to the same conclusion independently. Whatever it took, they needed to extract this raw, unpolished talent and bring him to RB Salzburg. The rise was so fast it felt unreal, and when Metz finally accepted an offer that dwarfed every other bid, Mané later admitted that the club president sat him down and said, "Listen kid, it's $4 million, we can't say no." And he broke down in tears, not from excitement, but heartbreak. Because Metz had just started to feel like home, and once again, he was being uprooted. Suddenly he found himself over 3,000 miles from Bambali, alone in a tiny one-bedroom apartment furnished with nothing but a battered leather couch, chasing a dream so big it sounded ridiculous even to the people around him, especially when he openly told club staff that his ultimate goal was to win the Ballon d'Or, before quickly softening it with a smile and saying, "All right, then African Player of the Year first." It didn't take long before the talk turned into reality, because in just his third appearance for Salzburg, Mané exploded, scoring twice and assisting another in a dramatic win over Sturm Graz, then 4 matches later smashing his first hat-trick, followed by another just weeks after that, and by the end of the season, despite missing out on the league title, he had piled up 29 goal contributions at a rate of 1 every 82 minutes, enough to make even his biggest doubters pause. In his second season, hesitation vanished completely, as Mané bulldozed Austrian football, netting his 4th career hat-trick to fire Salzburg into the cup final and lift his first trophy. While in the league, he reduced opponents to spectators, opening up an 18-point gap at the top, at one stage recording 23 goal contributions in just 14 games, and although his Europa League destruction of Ajax felt like a breakthrough moment, the match that truly altered his trajectory came in an unlikely setting, a winter friendly against Bayern Munich. That night, the Red Bull Arena sold out for the first time since the 2008 Euros, packed with scouts who sensed something special, and within 30 minutes, Mané slipped the ball past Manuel Neuer, won the penalty for the second, then assisted the third, sealing a stunning 3-0 dismantling of the reigning European champions. Rangnick called it legendary, a teammate joked that Mané had given Guardiola a footballing lesson, and in Dortmund, Jürgen Klopp immediately started making calls, desperate to find a way to sign him. But when the two finally met, the deal fell apart over something almost absurd, as Klopp later admitted he was put off by Mané's outfit, joking that his baseball cap made him look more like a rapper than a footballer. And after internal hesitation, Dortmund walked away. Mané, however, was done waiting. He forced his exit from Salzburg in controversial fashion, even sitting out the most important match in the club's history. Watching them miss Champions League qualification after 2 decades, gambling everything on a £12 million move to Southampton. England proved harsh and unpredictable, and as one journalist later put it, one week Mané looked unstoppable, the next he looked completely lost. A contradiction that defined his first season, where 7 goals across 36 league matches were followed by one unforgettable moment, scoring the fastest hat-trick the Premier League had ever seen, 3 goals in 2 minutes and 56 seconds, shattering Robbie Fowler's record, only to then return to Salzburg for a friendly and be greeted with boos from fans who still felt betrayed. That night stayed with him long after the stadium lights went out. Mané would later admit it rewired something deep in his mind. A brutal realization that from that point on, he could no longer afford even the smallest mistake. And at first, it looked like he had embraced that pressure perfectly. The new season began with fire. 8 goal involvements in his first 7 matches, a dominant man-of-the-match performance against Chelsea, and a goal scored just 39 seconds into a clash with Liverpool that made people sit up and take notice. But football has a way of testing conviction, and suddenly everything unraveled. The goals dried up. 1 match turned into 2, 2 into 10, and before he knew it, Mané was trapped in a 16-game nightmare without a goal, the kind of drought that swallows careers whole.